They say a man can buy anything with gold: comfort, fame, even love. But what if I told you there once lived a king who had everything, and yet every night he couldn't sleep in peace? This is the story of a man who ruled the richest kingdom, but lost the one thing every soul needs: peace of heart. Long ago, in the grand kingdom of Suryagar, there lived King Arman. He was powerful, wise in politics, and loved by his people. At least, that's what everyone believed. The palace walls were covered with gold, the gardens filled with flowers from distant lands, and every festival was celebrated like a dream. Yet when the lights faded and everyone slept, the king sat alone in his grand room, silent, restless, and heavy-hearted. You see, King Arman had one obsession: more. More gold, more land, more fame. No matter how much he had, it was never enough. One day he looked at his crown and whispered, "I am the richest man in the world, yet why do I feel so poor inside?" That question haunted him. But instead of stopping, he tried to fill that emptiness with even more wealth. He increased taxes. He sent his soldiers to conquer nearby villages. He built giant statues of himself so the world would never forget his name. People started to fear him more than love him. Farmers cried under heavy taxes, merchants stopped smiling, and the laughter that once filled the streets of Suryagarh began to fade. But the king didn't see it. He was too busy counting gold, as if the sound of coins could silence the noise inside his heart. One evening, as he sat beside his mountain of treasures, his old advisor, Sage Riven, entered the hall quietly. The sage bowed and said gently, "My king, I see your riches growing, but tell me, do you feel richer in your heart?" The king frowned. "What do you mean? I have everything: palaces, jewels, power. What more could I need?" The sage smiled sadly. "Peace, my king. You cannot store it in chests or measure it in coins. You can only earn it by giving." The king's pride burned. He dismissed the sage with anger and shouted, "Gold can buy anything, even peace, if you know where to look." But that night, sleep never came. Weeks later, a terrible drought struck the kingdom. The rivers dried, crops failed, and hunger spread like fire. People came to the palace gates crying for help. But the king hesitated. He feared that giving away his gold would make him weaker, so he ordered the guards to turn them away. Days passed. Then one night, as the king looked down from his balcony, he saw a mother holding her child, begging for a drop of water. The child's voice was weak. "Mother, will the king help us?" The mother's eyes filled with tears. She whispered, "No, my son, the king loves his gold more than his people." Those words pierced his heart like an arrow. He felt something inside him break, the pride that had blinded him for years. The next morning, he called his ministers and said, "Open the treasury, give food and water to every home. If it takes all my gold, so be it." The palace doors opened, and for the first time in years, the people saw hope return. The king himself went to the villages, helping carry sacks of grain, comforting the sick, and watching the smiles return to faces he once ignored. He began to feel something strange, something lighter than gold and warmer than sunlight: peace. But fate, it seems, had one more lesson to teach. The drought ended, but King Arman's health began to fail. Years of sleepless nights and guilt had taken their toll. One evening, as the sun set beyond the palace walls, the sage Rivan visited him again. The old king, now weak and pale, smiled faintly. All my life I chased gold, but I found peace only when I gave it away. The sage nodded gently. Gold can build kingdoms, Armin, but kindness builds peace within the soul. With a peaceful breath, the king closed his eyes, not in regret, but in calm surrender. And when he was gone, his people built no golden statue for him. Instead, they planted a garden where children played freely. They called it the Garden of Peace, a reminder of the king who learned too late that gold cannot buy the quiet joy of a kind heart. So what do we learn from King Armand's story? Maybe peace isn't something we earn with power or money. Maybe it's something we find when we stop chasing and start giving. You and I, we all have our little kingdoms, our homes, our dreams, our work. And sometimes, in trying to make them perfect, we forget to enjoy the peace within them. Gold may shine, but only love and kindness can make the heart glow. So the next time life tempts you to chase more, remember this: peace doesn't live in the palace of the rich. It lives in the heart that knows when to give.